The stars shimmered brightly above the lush expanse of Overus Prime, a planet caught in the delicate tension between war and diplomacy. Its two suns bathed the jagged mountains and endless green valleys in golden hues, but the beauty belied the chaos unfolding in the skies above. Hundreds of vessels hung in orbit, poised like predators, an uneasy silence preceding an imminent storm. Among them was the Resolute Dawn, a massive Terran flagship bristling with weapons, its very presence a reminder of humanity's ability to wage devastating war. Inside the command chamber of the ship, Ambassador Elena Torres stood with her arms crossed, her sharp brown eyes scanning the holographic display of the alien fleet. Her dark hair was pulled into a tight braid, a reflection of her no-nonsense demeanor. Elena wasn't just any ambassador, she had brokered peace between warring factions on Earth that everyone thought irreparable. But this, negotiating with the Craxians, a species infamous for their relentless conquests and disdain for diplomacy, was an entirely different beast. Beside her stood Commander Ethan Calloway, a battle-hardened officer whose towering frame and scarred face spoke volumes about the life he had led. He was a stark contrast to Elena, his pragmatic approach to conflict often at odds with her unwavering belief in negotiation. Yet, as they gazed out at the alien fleet, even Ethan's normally confident demeanor seemed subdued. "They've destroyed 3 colonies without so much as a warning," he said, his gravelly voice breaking the silence. "And now they want to talk. Doesn't that seem like a trap to you?" Elena didn't reply immediately. She kept her gaze fixed on the display, watching the movement of the Craxian fleet. The Craxians were warriors to their core. Negotiation wasn't just rare, it was unheard of. The fact that they'd requested a meeting had sent shockwaves through the interstellar community. "If they're willing to talk, we have to try," Elena finally said, her voice calm but firm. "Every life we save matters." Ethan let out a low growl of frustration, running a hand through his short-cropped hair. "You're assuming they want peace. What if they just want to stall us, buy time to launch another attack? Do you honestly think we can reason with creatures that see us as nothing more than prey?" Elena turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "We won't know unless we try. Isn't it worth the risk if it means avoiding another bloodbath?" Before Ethan could argue further, a low chime echoed through the chamber, signaling an incoming message. The air seemed to grow heavier as the holographic display shifted, revealing the towering figure of a Craxian leader. General Kraskal was an imposing sight, his chitinous armor gleaming under the dim lights of his command ship. His multifaceted eyes glinted with a mixture of curiosity and disdain as he regarded the humans before him. "Humans," his voice clicked and hissed, though the translator rendered it intelligible. "You have shown resilience where others have fallen. We find this intriguing." Ethan's hand hovered near his sidearm, a reflex born from years of dealing with enemies who spoke of intrigue and honor while preparing to strike. But Elena stepped forward, her expression unflinching. "General Kraskal," she said, her voice steady, "we've come to discuss terms for a ceasefire. The bloodshed between our peoples must end." The general's mandibles clicked together, a sound that sent an involuntary shiver down the spines of the human crew. "End? There is no end to conquest. There is only victory or annihilation. Yet you humans speak of peace. Why?" The question hung in the air like a blade, sharp and unnerving. Ethan exchanged a glance with Elena, silently urging her to tread carefully. The room seemed to hold its breath as she considered her response. "Because war doesn't just destroy lives," Elena said, her tone softer now, almost pleading. "It destroys hope, culture, the future itself. Peace isn't weakness, General. It's the strength to choose life over death." The general tilted his head, a gesture that might have been amusement or skepticism. "And yet, your species builds weapons capable of erasing entire planets. Tell me, Ambassador, is this your version of peace?" Before Elena could respond, the holographic display flickered. A new alert blared through the chamber. A Craxian warship had broken formation and was moving toward a vulnerable human colony nearby. Ethan swore under his breath, his hand finally gripping his weapon. "This is what I was talking about. They're playing us, Elena." But Elena didn't move. Her gaze was locked on Kraskal, who remained eerily still, his expression unreadable. "Was this your plan all along?" she demanded, her voice hardening. The general's mandibles twitched, and for the first time, a strange emotion flickered across his alien features. Was it hesitation? Regret? Before he could answer, the connection cut abruptly, plunging the room into tense silence. Ethan turned to Elena, his jaw clenched. What now? Elena stared at the blank display, her mind racing. The Craxians were unpredictable, their motivations murky at best. But something about Kraskol's reaction nagged at her. Was there a chance he truly wanted peace, or was this all part of some elaborate ploy? Taking a deep breath, she looked at Ethan. We prepare for the worst, she said, but we still go to the negotiation table. If there's even a sliver of a chance to stop this war, we have to take it. As the Resolute Dawn turned its course toward the meeting point, the crew braced themselves for whatever lay ahead. Would they find common ground with the Craxians, or was humanity walking into a carefully laid trap? The answers lay in the shadows of the unknown, and the fate of millions hung in the balance. The Resolute Dawn glided silently through the dark expanse of space, its engines a faint hum against the vastness. The bridge was tense, the air thick with unspoken fears and quiet determination. Every member of the crew knew the stakes. If this negotiation failed, it could mean the obliteration of entire colonies, perhaps even Earth itself. And yet, the idea of success felt like a fragile thread, stretched thin and fraying with every passing moment. Elena Torres paced the length of the command center, her thoughts racing. The weight of her decisions pressed down on her, each one carrying the potential to save or doom billions of lives. As a child, she had always been fascinated by the stars, dreaming of a universe full of wonder and discovery. But the reality was far grimmer than she could have ever imagined. The stars weren't just places of beauty, they were battlegrounds. Ethan stood nearby, his arms crossed, his eyes fixed on the main display. The tactical radouts showed the Craxian fleet maintaining their position, though one warship remained on its ominous course toward the colony. His instincts screamed at him to act, to intercept the threat before it could do any harm. But Elena had convinced him to wait, to hold the line for the sake of diplomacy. It was a gamble he didn't like, but he respected her enough to follow her lead. For now. Do you think they'll actually show up for the talks? Ethan finally asked, breaking the silence. His voice was low, gruff, as though he was already preparing himself for the worst. They will, Elena said, though she wasn't sure if she believed her own words. If they wanted to wipe us out, they wouldn't bother with the pretense of negotiation. There's something they want, something they need. We just have to figure out what it is. Ethan's jaw tightened. And if what they want is something we can't give. Elena stopped pacing and turned to face him. Then we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But I'm not ready to give up before we've even started. Before Ethan could respond, a junior officer approached, his face pale. Ambassador, Commander, we've received a message from the Craxian fleet. They're confirming their attendance at the negotiation site. Elena nodded, a small flicker of relief washing over her. Good. Prepare the shuttle. I want a small team, just enough to make an impression, but not enough to appear threatening. Ethan frowned. You're going down there in person. That's a mistake, Elena. You're the one they need to talk to. If they kill you, this whole thing falls apart. They won't kill me, she said firmly. Not if they truly want to negotiate. And besides, this isn't the kind of conversation we can have over a hologram. They need to see that we're serious. Ethan shook his head, muttering something under his breath, but he didn't argue further. Instead, he turned to the officer. Prep the security team. I'm going with her. Elena raised an eyebrow. I don't need a babysitter. You need someone who's willing to put a bullet in one of those things if it comes to that, Ethan shot back. And that's me. The tension between them was palpable, but Elena knew better than to fight him on this. Fine. Just try not to escalate anything. No promises, he muttered, already heading off to make preparations. As the team readied the shuttle, Elena took a moment to review what little information they had on the Craxians. They were a warrior race, their society built around conquest and dominance. Yet there were whispers of a rigid code of honor, a system of rules that governed even their most brutal actions. If she could tap into that, find a way to appeal to their sense of order, there might be hope. The shuttle launched from the Resolute Dawn its sleek frame cutting through the void. The negotiation site was a neutral platform, an ancient construct floating in the emptiness between their fleets. It had no weapons, no defenses, just a vast chamber designed for face-to-face encounters. As they approached, the enormity of the platform became clear, its surface dotted with intricate carvings that glowed faintly in the starlight. Inside the shuttle, the atmosphere was heavy. The security team checked their gear in silence, their faces stoic but tense. Elena sat at the front, her hands gripping the armrests of her seat. Ethan stood nearby, his gaze fixed on the approaching structure. "Remember," Elena said quietly, "we're here to talk. No sudden moves, no hostility. We need to show them that we're willing to listen." "Let's hope they're willing to do the same," Ethan replied. The shuttle docked with a soft hiss, and the team disembarked into the cavernous chamber. The walls were smooth, reflective, and the air carried a strange metallic tang. At the far end of the room, a group of Craxians stood waiting. General Kraskol was at the center, his towering frame unmistakable. Beside him were two other Craxians, their features equally alien and intimidating. Elena took a deep breath and stepped forward, her team flanking her at a respectful distance. The general watched her approach, his multifaceted eyes glinting in the dim light. "Ambassador Torres," he said, his voice a low rumble that echoed through the chamber. "You have come, as promised. This pleases us." "I came because I believe we can find a way to end this conflict," Elena replied. "But it will require effort and compromise on both sides." The general tilted his head, his mandibles twitching. "Compromise is not a word we value, human. It is weakness. Yet you stand before us, unarmed, vulnerable. Explain this contradiction." Elena met his gaze, refusing to be intimidated. "It's not weakness. It's trust. I'm trusting that you want peace as much as we do. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here." Kraskol's mandibles clicked again, but he said nothing. Instead, one of his companions stepped forward. This Craxian was smaller, his movements more deliberate. "You speak of trust," he said, "yet your fleets surround us, your weapons aimed at our ships. Is this your idea of trust?" Ethan bristled but kept silent, his hand hovering near his sidearm. Elena raised a hand to calm him before replying. "We're all on edge. We've both suffered losses, but I believe we can move past that if we're willing to try." The smaller Craxian hissed, a sound that might have been laughter. "We shall see, Ambassador. But know this, trust is earned, not given freely." The conversation was tense, every word a careful dance around potential disaster. And yet, beneath the surface, Elena sensed something, an uncertainty in the Craxians, a hesitation that hinted at motives they weren't revealing. As the talks continued, the air in the chamber seemed to grow heavier. The stakes were rising, and both sides knew it. But as Elena spoke, weaving her words with the care of a diplomat and the passion of someone who had seen too much loss, a flicker of something passed through Kraskol's expression. Was it understanding? Doubt? Before she could determine what it was, a sharp alarm blared through the chamber, cutting through the tension like a blade. Both human and Craxian teams tense, their hands moving instinctively to their weapons. "What's happening?" Elena demanded, turning toward Ethan. He checked his communicator, his face darkening. "It's the colony. The Craxian warship. It's accelerating." Elena's heart sank as she turned back to Kraskol. "Call it off," she said urgently. "If you truly want peace, prove it. Call off the attack." The general's mandibles twitched, his expression unreadable. "And if I do not?" "Then there's no point in these talks," Elena said, her voice trembling with desperation, "because it will mean you've already made your choice." The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Kraskol stayed at her, unmoving, as the seconds stretched into an unbearable eternity. Would he make the call, or was this the moment humanity's hopes for peace would be extinguished?